It really is after hours now, isn't it?
Well, the only thing is the wife is the last one standing.
Yeah.
I have to be honest.
Be honest about what?
Be honest.
Should be listening from the other room.
Yeah.
Things. What's he talking about? Well, thanks for coming on. This is going to be good fun.
No, thanks for having me.
This, as you know, MOLT, we are all about growth. Everything we do is about helping big companies to learn faster and grow, ditch old ways of learning. So this podcast is all about stories of real people and how they have grown in their lives. And we just want to have a good old chat. Ant Attree has founded and run and sold multiple businesses. You have a very interesting career. Where did it start?
I kind of fell into being an entrepreneur. So I haven't got the Jeff Bezos story. I woke up with a dream one day and that's all I ever did. I qualified as an accountant. So going back through school, I was always very numerical. And, I was kind of somebody that probably because I was lazy, I knew I was going to end up taking a career path that I was comfortable and I didn't have to stress myself with. So because I was always very, very comfortable within maths, I kind of went down that route. I did my training on the job. I started various businesses. So I started in the public sector for the local tourist board. That was a bit of an eye-opener and kind of dictated really my path from there. Not necessarily in a good way, in the respect that I didn't want to be in the public sector. So I then from there moved to B&Q, big local firm to us. And kind of what I'd found is actually because it's so massive, their finance department, you see that much. You don't get, all of my learning, my college, essentially I did an apprenticeship. You get this visibility of everything. You have your finger on your pulse in all parts of the function. And it almost felt like a backward step. So I'd gone in and I'd started to become more involved in sort of data entry. And I lasted 3 months. Like I just wasn't where I wanted to be. So I then moved. I was contacted by it was a consultant for the board who had just taken over a local holiday centre. They had just leveraged a massive bank loan at the time to go through their own period of growth. And, he'd kind of gone into a finance department, and not just a finance department, but a wider business model that basically needed to sharpen up quick. And he reached out and said, look, I need somebody to come in as a more senior person. Bearing in mind, I was probably 20, maybe 21 years old at this point. So, whilst I'd been qualified, I was pretty green still. And I loved it. Again, it was kind of, multifaceted as a role. We had on the park itself, we had the park as a business that was generating tourism, but it actually had a restaurant, a pub, a leisure centre, a spa, a shop, a local shop, and all of those were businesses in themselves. So I went there, did probably 4 years there, and got to that point where it was a little bit like, okay, now I need something else. So I bounced around for a couple of roles. Industry was tough, and eventually I ended up in construction. So which is where I met my current business partner, guy called Dorian Lawrence.
The mighty Dorian.
The
tower that is Dorian.
Both in physical state and in presence and stature. And I was a senior finance member in his team. And I was there for a year, and construction, having never been in construction, is horrible. And when I started working for Dorian, his business had been going for 25 years. So it was It wasn't a startup. It was an established business. And we had a situation where the business had an overdraft facility, and there were a couple of projects that were tough. Bank didn't like them, and the day of payday, 5 p.m. payday, the bank walked a letter in to reception and said, we're withdrawing the overdraft. Like that, bang. So, I mean, that was probably, that was the darkest day for me. And, I had family to feed. We just bought a house. My daughter was 6-7 months old, something like that. Might have been maybe a year. And he's like, what am I going to do? Like, I've always been employed. And, Dorian and his business partner at the time felt they had some unfinished business in the space and wanted to launch a startup. So,
sorry, so that business went bust.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So how long did you have then after they walked that letter in? What then happened after that?
So I had a strange feeling when I saw this guy walk in, didn't know who he was, just as I was walking out. And I just thought, something doesn't feel right here. And I remember I was off on the Friday. So it was a bank holiday weekend, must have been August bank holiday weekend. And it was Tina, my wife's cousin's wedding. So we were off. And I remember waking up about 2:00 on the Friday morning and just thinking, I'm just gonna check my salary's gone in. And I checked my phone and there was an email there. And it essentially said, look, this is what's happened. There was no smoke and mirrors. It was very, very transparent.
Yeah.
This is what's happened. Don't come in tomorrow. We'll meet on Tuesday. Come to the office for a meeting on Tuesday. So, and essentially what happened is the administrators had to come in. So that was kind of like the first oh shit moment. Like, what am I actually going to do? And Dorian and Lee anyway had decided that they'd done 25, 26 years. They had a lot to give, and they wanted, the business had maybe swollen a little bit, as a lot of businesses go through, where you recruit, and you kind of lose sight. And they wanted to start small and nimble again. And, essentially I pitched myself back to them and sort of said, look, somebody's going to need to run your finance here. There was only a team of sort of 6 or 7 of us. But somebody's going to need to run your finance here. So they took a punt. They said, all right, maybe I was young, impressionable, and probably cheap to employ, but
how old were you at that time?
So that would have been, not wanting to give my age away here, but that would have been 2015, 2016. So I would have been 30, just gone 30. So, probably not young, but certainly didn't feel like an old, mature adult. And so I got on board and I started working with them, and, that business Face traded for, just over 3 years. And by which point we'd had the Grenfell tragedy. And because we were in the cladding space, we were subcontracting in the cladding space, and the market completely and utterly changed. And actually what, as if by chance, it was, Dorian's got a really good friend in the property space who had essentially reached out as sort of, for some assistance. And we had a conversation. We said, this is probably something we can deliver. So we did. And my previous business, FR Consultants, FRC, was born out of that kind of, it was never meant to be this world dominating business. It was meant to be something almost as a side project to help. And it just absolutely exploded.
So explain FRC and what it did in terms that you're 8-year-old can understand?
So, crikey. I mean, my 8-year-old's bright, but she's probably not overly, well, she's 12 now. But so FRC, you had the Grenfell tragedy. So, it's well publicized. The ACM cladding spread fire externally up the wall. Far too many people lost their lives. And, going back to this sort of chance encounter, really, basically the conversation started with, I've got ownership interest in buildings. I don't want to have Grenfell number 2 on my stock. So essentially what we started doing is external wall surveys. And those external wall surveys are, pretty much as they say on the tin. So we go to a building, we open up the external wall from out to in, and we report on what's there and the combustibility and the quality of install. And back at that time, there was no, the industry now, we'll get to that point, but the industry back then, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was, there was no real clear guidance. There was no regulation. There was no standards to work to. And we came up with a solution to be able to do these services. And in 2019, both myself and Dorian made the decision that actually, like, this is we could do something with this. Like, up until this point, we were doing a handful of surveys here and there. We were working it around our existing commitments, and we said we could do something with this. Like, this is a service that people genuinely need.
So at that time, were you working or doing any other work, or were you full-time FRC?
So up until June 2019, I was working with Dorian from his subcontracting business as well, and doing some work in FRC. June 2019, we went full-time, full focus on FRC. And it went really wild. So, sort of probably June, July, August. Certainly Dorian, he's very outgoing as a character. He made some really good contacts in the space. And we were doing quite nicely. And then October came around, and October 2019, the RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, got involved. So UK finance has started to make noises about the mortgageability of these properties, and all of a sudden we started to get a lot of inquiries, and we did a piece of work with a big freeholder where we essentially won their portfolio to do these inspections on their properties. And I think it was about 26, 27 properties specifically that they wanted us to do these works on. But what happened was like a real domino effect. So in the property management space, you've got freeholders that own these buildings, or the freeholds of these buildings. The leaseholders own the flats internally. But these freeholders essentially place the contracts to manage their blocks with property management companies. And these property management companies will own or manage buildings for multiple freeholders. So you've kind of got a two-layer approach to how you manage stuff, or how you place orders on these blocks. And what happened is we got pushed into all these managing agents from this company, and it wasn't a well-known supply chain at this point. So there wasn't a lot of companies doing what we were doing, and instantly this supplier that a big freeholder was comfortable in recommending and pushing forward got pushed onto these suppliers, these property management laps. And what happened is they then actually took us up to their clients. So it kind of, what happened, we had this two-layer of, we were pushed down, we were spread, and it was kind of just zigzagging outwards. So it was really starting to get some traction. And then what happened was COVID. So now, obviously, COVID had massive implications for a lot of people. And what, two things that really kind of impacted our business in a positive way is, Teams and Zoom and Skype and all of that stuff. Potentially there were a lot of businesses that were still very old school, and they weren't interested. Like, home working wasn't a thing, or it very infrequently was a thing, because that control piece wasn't there. You couldn't see what your staff were doing. How did you know they were working? But all of a sudden you've got this global event that kind of says you're just gonna have to deal with it. Like, tough. Like, you're gonna have to deal with it. And the world become an incredibly much smaller place, because actually, like, it didn't matter if you were sat at your desk or you were sat in your lounge. You were working, you were visible, you could dial in on Teams. And so that was point one. And what instantly, and it went hand in hand with point two, is that if you're in London, you can't go outside, you've got to stay indoors. You're in London because actually that's where the work is. Like, two things have happened hand in hand instantly. Is you're stuck inside. You've got no outdoor space. You've got no ability to be in London. You don't have the restaurants, the pubs. You don't have the social life. You are stacked on top of, your neighbours. So you don't want to be there. I could be doing this by the sea. I could be sat in Cornwall. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere recently that actually people from Cornwall are struggling to buy houses in Cornwall now because of
everyone from London piling out.
So that was part one. So all of a sudden it's like, hang on a minute, I don't need to be here. And then there was the fact that what that meant is that they needed to sell. Now, flats, in order to sell, had already piqued the interest of UK finance. So they were in a flat that UK finance was now, and our ICS were now thinking, what's here? What's the risk in it for us? We've secured, millions and millions and millions of pounds of funding against these assets. And all of a sudden we don't know their level of compliance or their level of safety. So they're interested. You've then got a resident, a leaseholder, that's got two things. They don't need to be here and they don't want to be here anymore. So they want to sell. And the two just fed each other. So, we went in, I tell quite a few people this story. So we went from 7 staff when Boris made the call to shut the country. We reopened the doors when he let everyone open the doors and work in an office again. We had 14. We doubled in size in 3 months.
Wow.
Working from home. Well, I had in our house at the time, it was a 2 up, 2 down. We had a kind of lounge dining room, and I had worked solidly for 3 months from my dining table. Didn't have an office, dining table. And I don't think I'd ever worked as hard just to get to find these people, to interview these people, to onboard these people. I was turning up. So we had an external IT provider. I was ordering laptops from him. He was dropping it. It was like, he was turning up to my house, outside my house. He was dropping it on my front step. I was going out, picking it up. I was then arranging for first day I'd get in the office. I'd have the laptop laid out on the office desk, boardroom table. I'd then get out of the way. The guy or the lady will come in, pick up their laptop, and I'll be like, right, I'll see you online in an hour, and we'll do this stuff. We'll do this handover, and and it was hard work, but it was great. And I think one thing that kind of probably really helped us is that, coming from a financial background, process and having clearly communicated processes is massive for value added opportunity, and operational efficiencies and culture. And we had to have it because we couldn't shadow, we couldn't sit beside someone to walk through what we do. Teams is great, but and we kind of said that it served a purpose, but what actually kind of we missed out on is that entrepreneurial office buzz. Like, if you're sat across the desk from somebody and I don't know, they get a call and they mutter under their breath, they don't know what to do, and you overhear it and you go, actually, this is what I've done in the past. Or, where am I going to find this sort of supplier from? And you say, well, I'll use someone like that. You don't get that on Teams, because you'd have to specifically send someone a meeting request for them to answer, for you to go, I've just had this happen. And they'll go, right, okay. You just wouldn't do it, because you wouldn't know who to dial in for a start.
So eventually you did end up back in the office. You said you opened the doors, 14 staff. Then what happened? Because you had a pretty wild couple of years after that.
Yeah, so definitely. So we basically continued the growth curve. So UK finance were getting involved, and regulation and environment and political factors kind of all sort of worked in the favor as well. Because what essentially happened is that you had this big, huge level of non-compliant stock that had started to be identified. And, what do you have to do with something that's non-compliant and creates a risk? You have to remediate it. You've got to fix it. And I think from people in the space, and it's kind of different if you live in a house to if you live in a flat. If you live in a house, you're the sole occupant. You're essentially in charge of the level of risk that you're susceptible to a point. If you're in a block of flats, block of apartments, you're also at the mercy of your neighbours, your fellow leaseholders. If you think I don't like the thought of charging a scooter, an e-scooter, it's too much risk for me. If you live in a house, you don't charge the e-scooter, risk goes away. If you live in a block of flats, you can not charge an e-scooter, but if your neighbour beside you decides to charge an e-scooter, there's nothing you can do. So so they had this need to start remediating it. And so there were 4 funds that were announced. Initially, it was the ACM fund. So the government released the ACM fund to remediate blocks with ACM.
Explain remediation for the average person on the street. What does that mean?
So essentially, remediation is for a building is you've got cladding, which is combustible. Long story short, it's the act of getting that off and getting that replaced with something that is non-combustible. So your ultimate remediation is not, you wouldn't open up Yellow Pages and ask someone to do this job. These are major construction projects whilst being lived in. And that kind of contributed to our involvement in our growth as well. So we were doing the survey side as a business, and we were finding these buildings that were non-compliant. They'd introduced a fund, and kind of at the moment, you're still doing the surveys. The fund is there, but you're still doing the surveys. And what we were really good at as a business is kind of going, well, there's an opportunity here that this is a whole ecosystem supply chain issue whereby you identify the issues with the stock. And if I was to say to you, like, by the way, Ben, you need to replace the external wall of your house, it could be £2.5-3 million worth of work. You'd go, well, what am I going to do? Like, what do I do? Like, do I go and speak to this person over here? He said he can give me a price. Okay, how do you protect yourself legally, contractually? Like, how do you enter into a contract? And that's kind of where the professional services side of the business came in. So we had the surveying arm, but we actually we said, look, we can help you. You're the client here. You're responsible, and there's funds that can pay for it. But we can help you. We can work with you. We had a background. We'd come from contracting. So we understood how it works. We understand contracts and, and the importance of those. And it's still funny now when you speak to people that are kind of have never been in construction, where they'll enter into a contract and they won't understand the gravitas of what and the magnitude of actually what they've done. It's not a case of you sign a contract and you go, do you know what, actually, I don't want to anymore. It's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And we do still get it. I see it with other people. I see it with friends, with family. Yeah, you've signed a contract. And so we introduced that service and we said, look, if you want us to help you through this, we'll help you identify contractors. We'll help you make sure the price they've given you is fair, is competitive. And that was a requirement of the fund as well. So, that in itself, adding that facet into the business, probably doubled us in size again, maybe even more. So we'd gone from
just through the advisory almost.
Just through the advisory and the project side. Probably I'd say even more. So we'd gone from 14 to, probably 30, 35 off the back of that. And that generated like explosive growth.
So I'll just recap because might have a lot of people watching who don't understand the space. I'll try and do it in simple terms. So if you're a freeholder and you own a block of flats, the cladding is basically the outside coating of that block of flats.
Yeah.
And after Grenfell burnt down, that put the spotlight on, the external cladding, is that external coating, is it too susceptible to going up in flames? Is it done properly? Is it safe?
Yeah.
So the government released funding to allow the freeholders to effectively inspect their cladding.
So it wasn't to inspect it. So the inspection was still sat with them. It was to essentially replace it.
To replace. So the funding from the government was to replace the cladding.
Yeah.
So you guys at FRC were kind of really well poised to then take advantage of that, because not only did they have to do it, but the government was going to pay for it to be done. So they would spend the government's money with your business.
Correct.
It's pretty cool.
And like the biggest thing I found from it, the biggest thing I enjoyed wasn't that part. It was the scale. Like, how do you've got a business that serves a purpose. Your business is great as well because you can, every business needs training. So you've got a market which is massive. If you sell men's t-shirts, your market is not only dictated by, gender, but also there's a taste element. So you've got a market that is kind of, but that's always existed. What had happened here with us is that 2017 obviously was the catalyst here. 2019, the regulatory bodies started to get involved, and it basically gone from no market at all to, do you think how many properties in the country? That's a scale.
Yeah.
And like time, as is well documented, it's in the news, it's a high public interest sector. Time is of the essence. Like, we need to do this. So
just going back to you personally, because that was crazy to go from, starting the business around, or going full on with the business around 2019. And then by the time you come back from COVID, you've got 14 staff. And then a year or so after that, you've then doubled again. How did that affect you? Did you enjoy it? Did you cope well with it?
So I would say, hindsight's a wonderful thing as well, isn't it? And I think, in that 2-year period or so, I'd gone from being an employee to being a proper founder, what I'd consider a proper founder. That person where the buck stops with you. You're looking around the room and actually everyone's looking at you for inspiration. Like, it was great. And actually as an individual, I probably also needed it. I've always been a bit of a joker, and sometimes I don't think I take things seriously enough. And all of a sudden, because we'd grown so quickly, we got people piling into the building, and they don't know any different. They don't know me that likes to crack a joke. They know of me as actually somebody that, a senior member in this business that is essentially responsible for its performance. And it was great, but it probably wasn't something that actually I noticed happening at the time. I think, I look back now and actually I needed it, because if it stayed at the level it was at the very beginning, I don't think I'd have had that personal urgency to, one, to make difficult decisions, have difficult conversations, because I'd be that person that'd be like, yeah, Dorian, mate, you can do this. Like, you can deal with this. Like, and, it was almost like a sink or swim scenario.
Yeah. What were some of the key things you had to learn?
I mean, definitely, being liked is the last thing you need. I see it now, and I still good friends with people that run businesses, other businesses, and they won't always make a decision. I mean, I love the Barack Obama quote that not making a decision is making a decision. And they think by not making, they don't want to make a decision, because actually that has a direct contradiction with being liked. If I tell you you're not very good at your job, you're going to not like me. And actually, kind of, I realized that I can't do that, because actually now, like, if I'm a member of staff, it's not my business. Like, if I don't tell you you need to improve and you don't improve, there's consequences. But ultimately, probably not going to be on me. Like, the founder's going to take on the responsibility of the business. If there's a performance issue off the back of this member of staff not performing, that's not on me. But now it is. So, and actually, the business became an extension of me as a person. It became one of my children. And actually, by somebody not performing, you're essentially harming my child. So, it's great. I love the fact that my staff feel comfortable around me. They generally do like me. I mean, if you spoke to some of them, there's probably ones over the years that don't. But it needed to happen. It needed to happen. So, that was a big sort of learning event for me. And and I say to people even now, I always look at it differently now. Go back to the scenario here. You're not performing as as an employee of mine. And I always used to look at it as, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to, I don't want you to not like me. But actually, the script really flipped when I thought, actually, do you know what? Like, why should I rob you of that ability to improve? Like, I've said to a few people, bullshit is toxic. It's the most toxic substance ever. If you think you're doing a good job and you're not, because I've given you the impression. So, let's go down the track a bit further. Doomsday scenario. You're in the office. You're working. You're coming in. Nobody's giving you feedback. Nobody's saying you need to do this, that, whatever you. And I think you're not performing. Like, you're not doing your job. You're causing me aggro. I'm having to pick up the slack. And it gets to a point where the straw breaks the camel's back. And I go, sorry, Ben, you can't work here anymore. Like, you're not performing. You're not doing well enough. I've picked up the slack for so long. I thought, if I was you, I'd rather know that I was going to get fired. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If
it shouldn't be a surprise.
No, absolutely. And, but I always thought about, I don't want to tell you bad news because I don't want to hurt your feelings. But I got to the stage where I was like, no, I need to give you the opportunity here. And I need to give these people the opportunity here to actually improve. They need to have control of the situation. And I had to let go of being liked for that.
Was there a moment where that became really obvious? Like, either in that period where you just started to employ people or when you grew and kind of doubled in size? Was there a moment or a day or a situation where you said, yeah, okay, this needs to change?
I think there was some subtle changes really, before, I used to crack a joke in the office. Everyone cracked a joke. And I don't know, there wasn't an exact time when I realized it. I just realized I'd started to notice it, where I'd see people, it's the classic turn inwards on your chair, away from your desk. Everyone has a giggle. And I'd started to notice myself becoming completely aware of, this is not one person that's not working now. This is like 5 or 6 people. And actually it becomes, it spreads. So it was that. But then also being the figurehead is ultimately problems end up at you. They might be not directly linked to you at all, but ultimately, again, that's that classic thing of I'm looking around the room and everyone's looking at me. So my tolerance to it started to really disappear quickly because I had to deal with that if it wasn't somebody that was directly working for me that wasn't performing, but they were impacting somebody that was working for me. And I couldn't just say we'd deal with it amongst yourselves because ultimately all of these people reported into me indirectly. So it kind of happened, I would say, probably during that growth period. It's really unfair because actually I think, I went for a stage probably with the growth where, we were really keeping it together. We were bringing people on. We had a really strong business culture. We had 9 cultures in our business at that time. And you go into businesses now and you see the slogans on the wall and what we had to do, because Dorian and myself wrote these cultures, is we had to hold people to account to them. It wasn't something that we were going to say, well, these are our business cultures, and then nobody actually knew what they were. We wanted our culture to be fundamental, and we had to, because again, you can't get, when you're hiring 400% growth, you will never get every hire right. And especially, and it's not so much the 4 times growth, it's the 4 times growth over a 2-year period. Like there were times where we'd had 4 people come in for their first day at the same time. You're never, ever going to get every hire right first time when you're growing at that rate, because you need people, you need bums on seats. You need, we were looking at people on CVs and going, you've got great qualifications. You're great on paper. Like, let's just do it. And actually what kind of happened is our cultures really rescued us in those situations because it held us to account when we brought people in that didn't really suit the business, because they were impacting our staff as well. So they were impacting our, the other members of the team, that we'd really pushed culture onto them hard. And you see somebody else come in, we had to do something about it, because otherwise what we're doing is undermining every other member of the team. So that was really, really kind of fundamental to us to get that growth journey and control it. Yeah.
What then happens? So the last couple of years before the exit, how did you ramp up towards the exit, and then how did you guys exit?
So we kind of made a decision. Essentially, you kind of got to make a decision, I suppose. It's like, what do we want to do with this? And I'd never been involved in a business before that had exited. I'd never even thought of it as a concept. We built this business up as ours. We'd put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, and we looked at it and thought, do you know what? Actually, like this space, it's a growing space, but is it a sustainable space? Like, is it a finite? Buildings aren't being built or shouldn't be built now with these types of cladding on them, and we thought, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And it was an interesting experience for me because I'd kind of been dragged straight back to my finance days. So I was running finance and operations, and I really started to enjoy the operational side, but we still ran it with a business that was really financially astute. We had accounts, we had cash flows, we ran it really tightly. And it was kind of like the best thing that we'd done because we realized as part of this exit process. So we engaged an agent, company called Blue Box, big up in London. They talked us through it because we had no idea. Like we didn't know what to expect. And interesting experience in itself. So they essentially go out, they find people that may be of a good fit. So it may be a competitor that wants to absorb and grow that way. It may be, somebody higher up our supply chain. We've seen it in the space now where like big managing agents, conglomerates have bought businesses like ours because they've got managing agent stock that they can use it as a supply chain. So, they'd go out and find parties like that, or it may be that, big consultancy firms that do other stuff in property, they do thermal stuff, they do acoustic stuff, and they might want to branch out. So they go away and they find all these parties and they reach out to them. They basically, write to them, phone them, say, look, we've got this business. They'll do what's called an IM, an information memorandum. So they'll do a bit of a pitch deck for you about your business, your size. It's very anonymized, but there's enough there to sort of get them on the hook. And they then get bites. So they'll get bites and they'll say, oh, send us a bit more information. So they start to uncover a little bit more and more. And then they do this thing called a dog and horse show, where basically you're kind of paraded in front of these really interested parties, typically on Teams calls. Again, post-COVID, I think it moved to Teams. And they would drill you. So they would scrutinize you. They'd ask you about the business. They'd ask you where it's going. They'd ask you what you've done to get here, etc. And the idea being with that is that ultimately that's kind of, are you in or you're out? Like you've done that part. If there's a fit, and again, it's a cultural thing with us because you're buying a management team, and you want the management team to still be involved. You're not buying it from a retiring shareholder and you're going to carry it on. These businesses need the management team to run the business still. So culturally, there needs to be a fit there as well. So that's part of that exercise. Then you invite tentative offers. So, I think we had, 3 or 4. And this was kind of less from us. Like they'd say, what about these guys? What about these guys? Yes. Does it work? Does it not? And, and then Blue Box just were absolutely magnificent. Like they just did everything, and it's not their first rodeo, is it? They know what they can push back on. They know what the worth is, etc. And ultimately we once you'd selected a party, crikey, you go through the most brutal. I mean, our DD process, the due diligence process, had 3 facets: legal, commercial, and financial. And it was properly involved. And the other factor we had here is that we didn't tell anyone, because you can't tell the staff, because instantly people don't really understand it. Like if I was to say to you, oh, by the way, sorry, Ben, but not sorry, but I'm going to sell my business. Instantly you'd think he's out, he's gone. Like who's coming in? Are they still going to want me to work for them? All of that stuff. And it was none of it was about that. So nobody knew. So we had this situation where I'm being called into more and more meetings. I'm being grilled for information, and the best thing we ever did was set the business up properly at the beginning, because if you have a good business, going through that DD process, whilst it's arduous and whilst it's intense, it's easy because
What are some of those things? Give us some practical examples. Set up well from the start.
So, I mean, probably the best way of me to explain it is, for any founders out there, if you took them out of a business, does the business know what to do, how to do it, process, suitable training, line of command, good communication, good contracts, good appointments. Again, I know people that have, like spit and sawdust agreements, really good, strong working relationships. But if you said,
it's
well,
not sellable,
prove it to me, you've got, and again, and that's part of this process as well, is they want the management team with the business, but they work on the basis that they're not there. So it's kind of, it is that, I say to people about the Trojan horse. Like, if you think of the Trojan horse, what they don't want to do is they're going to start taking off some panels and realizing there's two people in there pedaling. Like, what they actually want to see is they want to get under the bonnet and see there's an engine there.
Yeah.
So, decent contracts, good client relationships. They also want to know about the bad stuff. Like, there's always bad stuff in businesses, isn't there?
Yeah.
You've got potential bad debt. You've got, clients that are making noises. They're unhappy with you. And it's all about that as well, because what typically happens, there's two sides really to a sale, is they pay you, but also they contract you in. So as soon as you sign completion, you get warranties and indemnities. You may have heard of it, you may have not, but warranties are things that essentially, it's not everything. So there's normally limits. They're called quantum limits and de minimis, or thresholds, quantum thresholds and de minimis thresholds. And essentially the de minimis is like anything that comes in has to be over your quantum limit. So if we had a quantum limit of 10,000, for example, if somebody complained and said, I want my money back, and it was 9,995, doesn't matter. It's not over the quantum. Or sorry, it's not over the de minimis. I've gotten back to front. And your total de minimis claims need to add up to your quantum. So say it was 100,000 was our quantum. If we had 9 claims that were all £11,000 each, they've satisfied the de minimis, but they've not hit the quantum. So again, there's
in simple terms, this stops someone from buying your business, but then you get half your customers turn around and say, we're not happy, we want our money back, and they've just bought a mess and
they've overpaid.
Refunds. Yeah,
exactly.
So then how long did the due diligence process take?
So we had, we actually went for it twice. So, and this is the other side of kind of selling a business that you never really see, is the first time we went for a client. I think we entered into exclusivity probably in about the beginning of June. And we'd done the entire process. So we'd done legal, DD, we'd done commercial, we'd done finance. And essentially how it works is that they ask you a load of questions, you respond, they then review responses, they ask more questions. There's a data room environment at the same time. So you upload proof of responses. It's not like you ask me a question and say, that's the answer. You have to justify it, verify it as well. We'd done all of that. And we were essentially, they were borrowing the money to buy us, and they had a 10-day drawdown period. So we were being lined up. We were told like the drawdown's going to happen. We were aiming for end of month. So I think we're aiming for the sort of end of August. And the drawdown didn't happen on the day we were expecting. And the next day, I remember picking up the phone to Paul, who was the owner of Blue Box at the time. And he just went, they've pulled out. And I went, yeah, what do you mean they've pulled out? So they decided not to. And it literally just broke me. Like, I was so deflated. I was like, what do you do now? Like, we've gone for all this. We've you kind of take your eye off your business as well, because you're pulling all this info together. You're negotiating, you're in meetings, we're taking our eyes off the business. And I just thought, what do we do?
How did you feel in that moment?
Personally, I was gutted. One, because I'd done all this work. And two, you kind of rightly or wrongly, you start making a plan. Like, you think this is what's going to happen. And they always say, look, never ever put your hat on it until the ink's dry. But you can tell me that all you want. Like, this is not like I've done 3 months here, negotiating, agreeing, everything else. Like, I'm going to start thinking about the future. Bearing in mind, go back to what I'd said earlier about, 2 a.m. I'm thinking this in my mind, like that 2 a.m. checking of my emails, 5-6 years before, and just thinking this is a situation here where actually, like, I've got some control, and it's like, no, they've pulled out.
And then you eventually did sell.
We did. So we went away. We had a conversation again, myself and Dorian, and thought, what do we want to do here? Like, for me, it was a great experience. Whilst it was absolutely soul destroying at the time, it was a great experience. Like, doing that whole due diligence process, negotiating, like, for someone that 5-6 years ago was an employee, and I only ever saw myself as an employee. Like, I've gone through this process where everyone's looking at me for inspiration. They're being inspired, but also I'm sitting around a table with people that have got businesses worth hundreds of millions of pounds, and they're not looking at me as if I'm nobody. They're looking at me as if I know what I'm doing. Like, so for me, that was a great experience. So we kind of said, well, look, why don't we see if there's still the interest there? And one of the parties that was serious previously was still serious. And so we went through the DD process again. So, and I think that probably started maybe the sort of October, November time. And this time it's different, because this time I'm now like,
you know what you're doing.
Well, I know what I'm doing, but also I know what's at stake here.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going for another 4 or 5 months, I've got so close to it once to getting over the line.
Yeah.
And we had a situation where we started sort of November, December time. We were talking about dates. We were talking about same conversations again. And one of our clients, we had 4 projects with them, big projects, 2 years worth of revenue, and they terminated. And instantly it was like, here we go again. Like, they're not going to want to be involved. And we're just going to have to tell them, like, we have to, because again, warranties are going to pick this up. Like, we just got to own it. The bad news story, just got to do it. And we told them, and to be fair to them, they didn't blink. Like, they said, great, these things happen. We do want to restructure the deal, but we still do want to do a deal. And that was in the February. We completed in the June. So, and with every month that ramps up, the cycle still repeats. Like, you've got, a lot of these companies, they look at propositions from spreadsheets, and they'll have the year to date, they'll have the last 12 months, and anything, the volatile, and we were in a volatile sector anyway. There was lots of people coming in. It was politically motivated. That worked in 2 directions. That could be good, that could be bad. And every month delivered more uncertainty. It was another set of figures that they were going to critique against this time 12 months ago. And so we started to get fatigue. I definitely started to get fatigue. And I'm like, come on now, I can't do this anymore. Like, we need to. And we finally got this one over the line. Like, we were, the longer it went on, the more intense it got. One, because of fatigue. Two, because actually the stakes are rising here. And, I remember it vividly. So basically they wanted us to renew our insurance. Our insurance wasn't due for renewal for another month. And I remember having the call with our insurance broker. And I was going, I need you to get our insurance. I need to get our PI. PI was massive for cladding, like professional indemnity insurance. There was a stage where it was incredibly difficult to get, which is hence why they wanted us to renew it. And they said, we need you to extend it. And it's all as my youngest daughter's sports day. And I'm walking around on the phone trying to do a deal with an insurer because I know what's at stake. Like, I want to get this signed now. I think we were getting up to the end of May, and I want to get this signed now, like, do it. Anyway, we managed to get it done. And I think the insurer, the underwriter, was on holiday. It's like, you kidding me? Like, come on. I can't do anything. Like, the underwriter's on holiday. So it happened. Eventually it happened on the Tuesday. And I was walking around Waitrose in Romsey, going to get something for dinner, and my phone rings, and it was our solicitor, a guy called Jeremy Over from Moore Barlow, local solicitors. Great. They'd been through the whole journey. They went through it first time round, second. He said, congratulations, it's done. And like, oh, okay. And then the buyer phoned me again, just after, just said, look, I'm really happy. Thanks for all your help. Looking forward to working with you. And great, brilliant. And I walked home. I didn't walk home. I drove home, and I got indoors, and Tina was upstairs, my wife. She was in the bedroom, and I just cried my eyes out. Like, because it went back to that August again, like that whole check in my phone thing. I'd done 6 years of like this whole, whilst we were doing well, like I still haven't secured my family's future. And it just happened. And I like bellowed like a baby. Like, she must have thought somebody had died, because I just walked in and just went. So, so it was massive, like emotionally, it was draining. Mentally, it was draining. We then had to tell the staff, nothing's happening. And we did 3 years. So we stayed with them. We stayed with the business for 3 years. But it does change. Like, it is different. Like, again, you go from being completely autonomous, in charge of your own destiny, to having a boss again. And it was difficult, completely. And we did 3 years, and we decided, like, personally, I decided I'd started to sort of struggle probably October, November 24. And and I thought, no, this is it. And Jan, I left. Funnily enough, we both left.
You and Dorian.
Dorian as well.
Yeah.
And he'd probably had the same thoughts we had. We'd just gone through a round of budget chats, and the parent company, it's their business, they wanted more. And I think it was just like,
stepped away.
This feels right now. So we left Jan 2025.
Awesome.
And I didn't feel like I was done. Like, I felt like there's still something I can offer into this space. But we had governance. We were locked out. We couldn't do anything. So I went and did some consultancy. So, and this was probably, a big deal for me, in the respect that I'd gone back to, again, like, we'd moved house, our lifestyle had changed. It was like, I'd lost some of that certainty. I can't not do anything for like 10 months, 11 months. What am I going to do? And actually I thought, that's a real experience that I can share with other people. So I took on some fractional clients. And then January this year, we launched DALA. So similar sector, same services. Dorian is still involved, less involved now. He's now chairman of the business. I am now solely responsible. I'm group MD of running the group.
Yeah.
And it is very much I'm completely aware now that the buck stops with me.
That is, it's just such a cool story, and I'm really grateful for you for sharing it. I think we're going to do a part 2, because I would love to get into the DALA story, so the current phase, And I would also like to dig into a few more of the personal growth
Definitely.
bits throughout the journey.
Love
But
to.
thank you so much for sharing the story. It must have been just the craziest time to go through that roller coaster.
Yeah.
So many examples of like growth, like personally and then for the business. But we will carry this on. We're going to do a part 2. We're going to do the DALA story, what are you guys up to now? And we'll dig into a few more of the personal growth stories from the last few years.
Definitely.
Thanks
Brilliant.
for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you.